First of all, I'd like to say that it's really a privilege to be with you. I spent some time signing a book called Hopes and Prospects, which had my name on it, so I guess I hadn't seen it before. It's really people like you and what you do that are the hopes and that offer the prospects for some kind of a decent future in often grim times. One of the major issues on the front pages these days is the deficit that we're facing, huge deficit. What are we going to do about it? And it's argue about how appropriate that concern is. There ought to be a deficit in a recession, but it is a problem, undoubtedly, and it's going to be a bigger one. And we know what it comes from, but it's rarely discussed. Half of the deficit is the military budget, which is reaching new heights. Obama's military budget is actually the biggest ever, but if you count the total military spending, it goes way beyond the year's military budget. It's all the costs of past wars, veterans care, interest on debt, and so on. It comes to a huge amount, and it's increasing. The other half of the budget is projected healthcare spendings. The U.S. has a completely dysfunctional healthcare system. It costs about twice as much per capita as comparable countries, some of the worst outcomes. And the hope of doing something about that went down the tube recently in what's called the victory over healthcare reform. An improvement over what was before, but it didn't face the question of costs, which traced right back to the unregulated, privatized system. The U.S. is alone in the world in that. It's alone in the world in barring the government by law from negotiating drug prices, and the net effect is costs spiraling out of sight. If we could have a healthcare system as efficient as comparable countries, there wouldn't be any deficit. But those two aspects of the economic problem are considered kind of off the table. I was listening to a discussion on National Public Radio a couple of weeks ago of two experts talking about with the moderator about what to do about the terrible deficit problem. Two things weren't mentioned: the military budget and health care. The only thing that was mentioned and the only possibility that they could come up with is cutting entitlements. So cutting Social Security, cutting medical care, and so on, but nothing else can be done. Well, the military spending is approximately the same as about the rest of the world combined. And the U.S. is technologically far more advanced, not only in military technology, but even in plans. Also, there's about close to 1,000 foreign bases that have to be paid for. The technology is being rapidly escalated under the current administration. Drones are being made, many more of them and many more elaborate, made more destructive, and the plans on the table are kind of pretty hard to imagine. They're planning now, DARPA, Defense Research Project Agency, is planning drones that, using nanotechnology, that will be able to penetrate into a room and assassinate a particular person in the room. And with advanced surveillance techniques, they think they're going to be able to know where every person is who they are interested in. And then all the way from there up to mass murder. There's the super weapons being planned. You may have read a report in the front page of the New York Times a day or two ago describing how Obama has to make a decision whether to accelerate the production of new super weapons, which would be able to hit any place on Earth within an hour or less, and with a destructive capacity that is comparable to nuclear weapons, that are not actually nuclear. The report says in the Times, the designers of the superweapon note that it could fly straight up the middle of the Persian Gulf before making a sharp turn toward a target. That means a sharp turn to the right. So this is intended as one of the additional threats to Iran. The timing isn't quite right for that, but that's what the Iranians are supposed to think. The same is true of these programs were actually planned during the Bush administration, but they decided to cancel them because they thought they'd be too much of a threat to the strategic balance, but they've been accelerated as soon as Obama came in, and they're now being advanced. The same is true of what are called massive ordnance penetrators, bunker busters for short. The biggest bombs in the arsenal, which about 13 tons, are supposed to go through thousands of tons of pounds of reinforced concrete deep into the ground. This program also comes from the Bush years, but it languished. However, as soon as Obama came in, within months, he accelerated development of these bombs. The Pentagon accelerated by about 3 years and are now being deployed. They're being deployed on the island of Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, a very important place, which I'll come back to. Again, a very visible and intended threat to Iran, part of the planning for what may be the next war. All of this, and it's easy to go on, all of this costs money, increasing amounts of money, and grows exponentially far into the future. Well, that's the deficit, but that's untouchable.